To honor the release of Hollow Knight Silksong, we are going to 112% Hollow Knight. It is finally time, everybody. Silksong is coming out on the 4th of September. I absolutely cannot wait. When I heard this news, I had to jump straight back into Hollow Knight and dominate the game one more time. My senses were dull and my reflexes were not sharp at all, but it didn't take too long for the ferocities of Hollowness to whip me back into shape. This video contains all of the Hollow Knight DLCs, including the Grimm Troupe and Godhome. Can we unleash devastation upon all the gods of Hollowness? Can we wipe out every single monster in the game? We're gonna find out in this video. We will not stop until we have achieved 112% completion. So let's jump straight into our completionist video and let's have some fun. If you're looking forward to some Silksong content, do not worry folks. Once this game gets released, we're going to be sinking our teeth straight into it and we will be prioritizing a 100% video as quickly as possible. Hollow Knight is one of my favorite games of all time. I absolutely cannot wait until the 4th of September to play this absolute masterpiece. In wilds beyond this, speak your name with reverence and regret, for none could tame our savage souls, yet you the challenge met. Under palest watch you taught we changed, base instincts were redeemed, a world you gave to bug and beast as they had never dreamed. The kingdom that we're going to traverse in this game is called Hollowness, and Hollowness is broken up into loads of different types of areas. The main enemies we're going to fight in this game are bug type enemies, and there are some wacky bugs to come across in this game. The first enemy you just saw there is just a regular grub, and if only all the enemies were like that, this game would be a breeze, but wait until you see some of the fights we have to go through in this game. What I just picked up here is our very first charm. This is called Fury of the Fallen. Now we start with 3 charm notches, and that charm takes up 2 of our 3 notches. But as the game progresses, we will get more charm notches, we will get more charms, and there's an absolute ton of different combinations that we can work out with our Hollow Knight in this game. So we will equip that charm. It just means when our health goes to 1, we will do increased damage, so it's a double-edged sword. So we're in the village of Dirtmouth at the moment. We're going to go straight past this village, down the well, and start exploring the kingdom. The Forgotten Crossroads is one of the first areas we have to explore in this game. This area is connected to a ton of other areas, but for now, we'll just traverse this zone and we'll fight a couple of bosses and see if we can make some decent progress. The first ambush room of the game, so we get attacked by a couple of these flies. They don't pose too much of a threat. We do get a perfectly timed strike there on a spike, which one-shots those flies, which is pretty good. What we see here now is basically a toll machine. This one just costs 50 gold, and that will summon a stag. We can use stags to fast travel around the map. We're also going to equip our Fury of the Fallen charm. We can equip these anytime we get a bench. The benches also restore our health, and they will also allow us to equip and unequip charms. Scattered across the world of Hollowness, we have a huge amount of grubs, those green caterpillars. We're going to have to save all of the grubs to get some achievements as well. This is the first boss, the False Knight. Very simple indeed. Now, as we can see, we do have a maximum of 5 masks on the top left hand side of our screen. Once all those masks get depleted, our character will die, and we will respawn at the last bench that we set on. This boss is very simple. We just tank and spank primarily. Once we deal enough damage, he will fall down onto the ground. We can hit his head a couple of times, and that will destroy the first boss, the False Knight. He does drop a key item that we need to progress the game, which is a key to the City of Tears. And that is an area we'll be traversing very soon. We also come across a shaman here, and she's going to give us our first spell ability. There's a good couple of spells we can learn in this game. This is the first of many, and it's a very powerful ability indeed. It's called the Vengeful Spirit, and this is going to be one of our main attack resources that we'll be using to destroy bosses as we progress this game. As we can see, the spell is a projectile attack, and the great thing about that spell is that it can be powered up dramatically using charms and also getting upgrades for it as we venture through Hollowness. We also picked up a new charm here called a Soul Catcher, and that charm is a game changer. It increases the amount of soul we get every time we strike an enemy, and soul is needed in order for us to conjure up our spells. If you take a look at the top left hand side of the screen there, you'll notice a bar that occasionally fills up It also gets depleted. That's our soul gauge. So we're in Greenpath now at the moment. This is the second zone we're going to be exploring. And this is host to loads of grubs that we get to collect, charms we get to pick up, and bosses that we get to destroy. We're just going to wipe out a few more mini bosses here now. As we can see, our new projectile attack is making quite the work of these enemies. We're going to encounter another boss here now, and it almost destroyed our lovely friend Zote, but we saved him just in the nick of time. This fight is pretty simple. We just have to jump when the boss dashes towards us. It can summon a few enemies as well. And after taking enough damage, we get to collect some nice geo. Geo is used to purchase stuff in shops. We'll come across lots of shops in this game. Once we've rescued a few more grubs, we're going to unlock another toll machine. It just means that we can fast travel down here if we ever need to come back. And trust me, we are going to need to come back here multiple times, because as we progress the game, we're going to get different moves, different spells, different charms, and different combinations will allow us to access different parts of the game. This is the first big boss battle of the game. This is the first fight with Hornet. And if you play Hollow Knight yourself, you know exactly what I'm talking about, where when you get to this fight, it really forces you to play more aggressively. Hornet is quite fast. She has a huge array of attacks. And what you have to remember about this fight is that it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And most of the fights in this game, especially the endgame fights, are huge marathons. So you really have to prioritize survivability, get to know her attack patterns, and just time your attacks pretty well. There are plenty of opportunities to get in strikes, but you just have to be very quick about it. A lot of the fights in this game are quite fast paced, such as this fight. When we defeat Hornet, we get our first main powered up. This is the Mothwind Cloak, and this will give us a dash ability. And the dash basically is going to give us access to a lot more areas of this game, because we can jump and dash, we can dash on the ground, we can even get charms that allow us to dash downwards. So the main story of this game is that there's a plague, and it is slowly but surely creeping out of the seal that is holding up the current Hollow Knight. The seal is weakening all the time. So we are going to need to sort that seal out. In order for us to sort the seal out, we have to break it open. To break open the seal, we need to destroy 3 big dreamer bosses. And they're located in all different parts of the game. To get to those dreamers and to kill them, we're going to have to go through some serious challenges. But before we get to these dreamers, we need to get some serious power-ups. That's what we're doing right now. We're just transversing the map. We're back in Greenpath now at the moment, and we're just collecting some charms. Because the more charms we collect, the more charm notches we can unlock when it comes to the future shops. So it's well worth our time now to do some exploration and to get as many charms as possible. This is the first time we're talking to our stag friend, which is basically our fast travel station. He does give us a pretty cool quest though. Once we find all of the fast travel stations, he'll bring us to a special area, and that will have some special items for us. But that's much later on in the video. For now, we're just going to deplete his dialogue, and we have 3 options. Dirtmouth, which is the starter zone, the Forgotten Crossroads, and Greenpath. So we're going to go back to Dirtmouth, and we're just going to have a poke around to see if we can get any power-ups around the town. So we're going to visit the map vendor here. This is a Zelda, and she will sell us maps of areas. And the great thing about a Zelda here is that if we've ventured into an area and we haven't found the original map maker himself, we can just come back to a Zelda here and purchase the map. So it's not the end of the world if we don't find the map maker in all of the zones. She does have a cool charm here called the Wayward Compass. This is very handy if you want to know where you are on the map. So if you're looking to explore areas, or if you find that you're lost and you want to get to a new zone, that is a really good charm to have. So we're actually back in the Forgotten Crossroads right now, and we're just exploring new areas. Having that lovely Vengeful Spirit spell trivializes a lot of the mini-bosses around here. That acid there will kill us if we step into it, so we gotta be super careful we don't fall into that acid. There's grubs all over the Forgotten Crossroads. Rescuing all these grubs will yield great rewards for us. This is another boss here now called the Gru's Mother. It's quite the easy fight. It will just trash up and down. We just have to dodge it. We just have to time our attacks. After a few strikes, it will go down easy enough. It does have a little surprise at the end though. When you think you have beaten it, the fight isn't actually over. Because tons of bugs will burst out of its stomach now in a second and they will attack us. That did give me quite the shock the first time I took on this fight. The reason why we came down here is because I want to get into the shop here. There's an NPC inside this little store called Salubra. She's actually hilarious. Now Salubra will sell us charms that we can't get out in the wild. She will also sell us charm notches. Now we can't buy all of the charm notches at once. We need to unlock the ability to buy them first, so we can only do that by collecting tons of charms. So what I just purchased there now of Salubra was a Shaman Stone. This would increase the power of our spell abilities, and it is quite the potent charm indeed. Not only will it make our spell bigger, but it packs a much bigger punch as well, and it will absolutely destroy bosses, especially the starter to mid-tier bosses. We have found a new NPC down here in the Forgotten Crossroads. His name is Sly, and once he snaps out of his little haze there, he will go back up to the village of Dirtmouth, and he can be used as a vendor, and we can purchase some really cool charms and other items from him that will come in super handy down the road. Because we picked up the Mothwing Cloak and Greenpath, we can now use our dash ability to get into a new zone called the Fungal Wastes, and this zone, just like the others, is pretty big. So for now, we will explore the paths that our abilities will allow us to, but we do come back here later on and do some more exploration because there's so many hidden zones in each of these massive areas. I do come across a little boss room here. These are just mini bosses, but once we defeat these two giant headbanger mushrooms, we will get an absolutely amazing prize, and that prize is a charm notch. And to get a charm notch this early in the game is a game changer, because the more charm notches we unlock, the more charms we can equip. And there are certain charms in this game that just go great together. You can even unlock special abilities depending on different types of charms you have set up. So here's a new NPC called Cloth, and she basically wants to prove her warrior prowess by fighting tons of bugs that Holonest has to offer. We will encounter her occasionally through our travels, and we do get to fight an epic boss towards the end of the video with Cloth by our side. So the video does get very fast paced very quickly, and we are going to see some crazy battles as the video progresses. It might be a little slow paced at the moment because we're just exploring the starter zones, but it will pick up dramatically later on. So our new setup, the Shaman Stone and the Soul Catcher, it's a great setup for us because not only will we get lots of soul when we strike enemies, but we can unleash very powerful spells with that soul as well. So that's going to be a setup I'm going to stick with through most of the game. I don't actually get rid of those charms at all, because I do use my Vengeful Spirit on most of the boss battles that I encounter. So we're going to get a new ability here now. It's called the Mantis Claw, and this is going to allow us to climb up walls, so we can now access even more areas the game has to offer. I'm going to take on a boss here called the Mantis Lords. Now normally people don't take these guys on this early in the game, but I have fought these guys so many times, I know all their moves off by heart. Their moves are pretty well telegraphed. So the fight starts with just one Mantis, but once this Mantis goes down, the two others will attack me at the same time. The fight does get much harder, but once you understand how all the movements work, it's not too bad. As we can see, there's now two of them on me at the same time, but you just really have to keep a cool head, look where they're coming at you from, and just strike when you get the opportunity. Having the Shaman Stone makes it a lot easier because we can get off a few spells every time they get past me. I do take a few bits of damage here and there, but overall the fight was easy enough. The reason why I do this fight early and not later on in the game is because it gives me access to a room which gives me lots of money, it also gives me a charm, and it gives me an item I can trade into a vendor that gives me even more money later on in the video. So it's well worth the effort coming out here as early as you can and getting that kill under your belt. The next room has some really nice goodies for us. The first item is a charm called the Mark of Pride. This will increase the range of our melee weapon. In this game, our melee weapon is a nail. That nail can be upgraded, and I think we can upgrade it up to 4 times in total, and it does become quite powerful indeed. The Holonest Seal can be traded into a vendor for 450 geo, and the last chest will give us a ton of regular geo as well that can be used to buy lots of powered ups later on. 620 geo right there. Not a bad haul, especially early on in the game. We will progress further down to the Fungal Wastes. We'll pick up the Dash Master charm. Dash Master will allow us to dash more frequently. It will also allow us to dash downwards. So we don't actually utilise that charm in this challenge run, Many of the charms we pick up on this challenge I don't actually use. I do have a set amount of charms I like to use and I'm comfortable with, and they do allow me to kill bosses quite quickly. When it comes to this game, the best advice I can give is that sometimes the best defense with certain boss fights is a good offense. Some requires a sprint, some requires a marathon. It just depends. The other reason we came down here is to rescue this NPC, and her name is Beretta. And the great thing about rescuing Beretta now is that she's going to go back up to Dirtmouth, and she will unlock her house for us. And inside the house will be a power-up that we can use to increase our maximum health. So in this game, our maximum health can be increased by a good few masks. We can also increase our soul meter as well, so we can hold more soul, which means we can fire off more spells during battle. So we're now making our way towards the City of Tears, which is a pretty big map as well. We just have to go through this little gauntlet first. We got an item off killing the first boss or the false knight, known as the City Crest. We can put that City Crest into this statue, and that's going to open up the way to the City of Tears for us. The City of Tears has lots of goodies for us to collect. It also has a very interesting NPC here called Quirl, and we're going to meet up with Quirl later on to fight a boss. We're going to tag team it. Without Quirl, the fight would be impossible, so it's a cool fight. Quirl basically tells us that something is pulling him down here, but he doesn't understand the reasons yet. But we'll get into that more as we progress through the game. We're also going to visit the Nail Smith, and he's going to upgrade our nail. It's going to make our melee weapon more powerful. We will have to come back and visit him a few more times to get the best nail that you can. So the first nail upgrade isn't going to cost a whole much, and he won't even need any special materials. He just wants some money and that's it. My advice, get the first upgrade as quickly as you can. 250 geo isn't much for the start of the game, and it does mean that enemies will die a little bit faster. Any future nail upgrades that we want to get will require a special material known as a pale ore. So the first upgrade requires 1 pale ore, the second requires 2, and the third requires 3. In order for us to get all of the pale ores and upgrade our weapon to its maximum potential, we're going to have to travel the breadth and width of this kingdom. So we've just bumped into another toll machine here, but this one will not unlock fast travel. That toll machine will actually unlock a bench, and there are a few of those in the game and they're coming so handy. Trust me, if you see a toll machine that unlocks a bench, just get it. We're also going to enter a new area here known as the Soul Sanctum, and there's quite a nasty boss ahead of us. But first we have to get through these enemies. I find these enemies very hard to fight because not only will they teleport around the place, but their weapon, their main projectile attack, is a homing attack. Sometimes it can be hard to shake it. This is a mini boss here, and we will encounter a good few of these as we progress through the game. Now the first one isn't too bad at all. You just have to be quick with the dash, and when you get an opportunity, just let loose a few spells on him. He will go down eventually, and he does drop quite a nice bit of money. So that was very nice indeed. 200 geo in the bag. We can now progress into the final area. We just gotta fight a few more of these teleportation guys. They're such a pain in the neck. Before we go into the boss though, there's a secret room up here. Inside is a charm known as a Spell Twister. It's a real nice charm. It reduces the soul cost of using spells. That's something that we do use in certain fights of this game. Fights where we can basically spam our spell abilities and destroy bosses within seconds. So this is the Soul Master, and this is the first version. There's much harder versions of this guy, faster versions, more aggressive versions, but we just have to beat the regular version for now. The reason why we're doing the Soul Sanctum now is because I want the ground pound ability so I can get into more areas of the game. This boss might take you a few attempts if you're not used to him, but overall he's not that bad. He wouldn't be the most difficult boss in the game, not by a long shot. We do have to watch out for his ground pound ability. Not only will he dive into the ground to try to hurt you, but it also releases a shockwave, so we have to watch out for that as well. The best time to heal during this fight is when he summons those 4 floaty orbs. If you get past them quite early, you can just stand still and use up some soul to get some masks back. It's now on to the second phase of the fight, and all he does here is just continuous ground pounds. Once he's finished up with all these ground pounds, he just floats in the air and he will summon homing projectiles, which we do have to dodge to the best of our abilities. But the main thing here is to dish out as much damage as possible to get his health down to end the fight. Once the fight is over, you will drop a very nice ability for us, which is called the Desolate Dive. This ability will allow us access into more areas of the game. So what we have right now is the Matwing Cloak, which is the dash ability, and now we have the Desolate Dive. And we also got the Vengeful Spirit too, which is our projectile spell. We do end up with a lot more abilities though, as the game progresses. It's now time for us to leave the Soul Sanctum, but before we can leave, we have to get out of this zone, and the only way we can get out is by utilising the Desolate Dive ability, slaying all these enemies, and slowly but surely making our way out back to the City of Tears area. It is worth backtracking, especially if you're collecting grubs. The more grubs you collect, the better rewards you get. Every time you collect a grub, you can go back to the little grub village, which is very close to Dirtmouth, the main hub of the game, and you will be rewarded with money and other powerful items. We just got a Wanderer's Journal there. That can be traded in for money. We're also going to unlock another toll machine, 200 Geo. They do get more expensive as you go on, but it has to be done. We need fast travelling to get around the map fast, because this game is absolutely huge. There are other methods of fast travel too, such as elevators like this and the tram that we'll get later on. This elevator was definitely worth the 150 Geo. Not only is it a shortcut back up to the Forgotten Crossroads, but it also gives us access to a secret area where we get a really nice power up. This is a vessel fragment, that's one of 3. Once we get 3 fragments, our maximum soul will increase. So we have one big soul meter there at the moment on the top left. We will get a smaller one below that once we get 3 vessel fragments. So we're going to talk to Liam here. He's our relic seeker, and he will basically purchase all of the journals and the seals and anything else that we come across on our journeys. 200 Geo for a journal, which is pretty nice. He's going to give us 450 Geo for a seal. It's a great way to accumulate money very fast. So because we rescued Beretta, we get to enter her house and we get our first mask shard. We can also buy some mask shards here off Sly as well, because we rescued him down there, Salubra's house. And we can purchase a lot of mask shards off him, but what we really want here is the Lumifly Lantern. Now it's 1800 Geo. It's very expensive, but it does light up dark areas and it lasts forever. There's tons of dark areas in this game. Those dark areas are almost impossible to explore without that lantern. Getting it early is a game changer, and it does open up a lot of the game for us. With the remaining Geo, we'll get some more mask shards. 500 gold for the third, we'll grab that. We can grab the fourth out in the wild, and that will increase our maximum health by 1. There's quite a number of mask shards we can collect in this game. We will need them all for the final couple of battles. There's some ferociously hard fights in this game. Fights so hard, it took me about 20 to 30 attempts to actually beat. This is actually a hard game. It's quite a hard game. It's a Souls-like game. So here's another boss here now, Malik, this guy's name is. And you can actually fight this guy at the very start of the game if you want, but I don't recommend it. You should at least have some decent powers before you take him on. I just had 1 piece of health left. I just barely beat him. But he does drop a mask shard, and I wanted that badly to increase my maximum health. So that is our first full mask added to our lovely Hollow. So we now have 6 pieces of health there to work with. We're also going to go through a little gauntlet here in the Forgotten Crossroads. Because we have the wall climb ability, we were able to get up into the zone. And we just grabbed another mask shard right there. So we just need 3 more now, and we can increase our max health again. We're going to enter the new zone here now. Because we have the Lumifly Lantern, we can access this machine, unlock this door, and now we can get to a new area called the Crystal Peak. New enemies, new grubs to collect, new charms to collect, and new bosses to destroy, along with tons of money and laps in between. So the Crystal Peak is a pretty cool area. It also has a big power up that we need as well, which is basically a supercharged jump. So the sooner we can get that now, the better. So the place that I'm going for here is to get all of the power up abilities as quickly as possible, and then start to really explore all of the game. Because if we want to 100% this game, we basically need to collect everything, and we will end up doing that eventually. There's lots of tough enemies in the Crystal Peaks, but because we're using our supercharged projectile Vengeful Spirit ability, most of the enemies don't stand much of a chance. Getting the grubs is super important. This is a zone I don't really want to come back to. We will have to come back to this zone, but only maybe twice or 3 times at most. This is the first encounter of the Crystal Guardian. The first encounter is quite simple. He does get much harder on the second encounter. He gets faster, he does double damage, and he has a lot more health, like most second encounters of bosses. We do have to watch out for those laser beams that are coming out from the ceiling. After a few more strikes though, he does go down. He drops a lot of money, which is nice. And we need lots of money in this game. 385 geo, not too bad. He also unlocks the bench, so it's nice getting a respawn point there. There's lots of little mini gauntlets in the Crystal Peak, but if we successfully do these gauntlets, we can get some nice items. What we get here now is another Wanderer's Journal. That's 200 geo, but we give that to Liam later on. We're also going to go down here into the big main area of the Crystal Peaks, which is to get the next big power up. This is a gauntlet area, and it's basically just timed jumps and timed dashes. Now it only took me one attempt, because I've done this about a million times, because I love this game. The big challenge here is that when you jump on these platforms, they will turn upside down. Now if it turns upside down, it's not the end of the world. You could just strike downwards and propel yourself back up, but you have to think really quickly about it. The gauntlet isn't super big, but it is quite tough, especially if you're not used to it. So we've picked up a new ability here called the Crystal Heart, and we can use this whenever we feel like it. It doesn't use up any sort of resource. We basically just push down the L pad on our controller, charge up the ability, and we just let it fly. Using that ability, we will be able to access even more areas that Colosseum has to offer. If we see grubs, of course, we will free them. So here's just another gauntlet. Easy enough, you know, we just have to time our movement. Another grub freed. So here's the gauntlet where we have to time our charged jump. And this can be quite difficult if we're not used to using the charged jump, you know, the Crystal Heart jump. But upon completion, we do get a charm called the Deep Focus. Now, Deep Focus will restore 2 masks instead of 1 mask. But we have to focus a lot more. It's more or less useless when it comes to fast-paced fights. So we're going to enter another very challenging gauntlet here. And upon completion of this gauntlet, our ground pound ability is going to get upgraded. All of our primary spell abilities in this game can be upgraded to much better versions. They basically do more damage. Once the gauntlet is done, we're going to break open this statue. This is a shaman here. It's going to give us an upgraded ground pound or an upgraded desolate dive. It doesn't become the Desolate Dive anymore, it becomes the Descending Dark. It's more or less the same thing, it just does a lot more damage and it has a much bigger area of effect. So we're now coming down into a new area. We come across this force field. It says to protect the vessel the dreamers lay sleeping. Manamon the teacher, Lorien the watcher, and Herod the beast. So I mentioned a few minutes ago, these 3 dreamers, they need to be found, they need to be killed. We need to break the seal. And the reason why we need to break the seal is because we need to contain the plague that's travelling all over Hollowness, infecting the bugs and making the bugs go mad. Now these dreamers will put us into a trance, basically like a dream, but we do eventually get out of the dream by talking to this NPC. Now this NPC not only will help us out of the dream, but we also get a very powerful tool here known as a Dream Nail. And this Dream Nail is needed to access a lot of the dream boss fights that we have to do to 100% this game. And I can tell you right now, some of the dream fights are extremely hard. Oh god, they're so hard. But we can also access these special trees with the Dream Nail, and these trees will drop essences for us to collect. Once we collect all of the essences, the little trees turn into big trees. But the main thing to take home from this is that these essences are needed to power up our Dream Nail to make it stronger. We've got a new charm there, the Dream Shield. We don't use that, but it's basically a shield that hovers around your body, and if anything touches off the shield, they take damage. The shield can also repel projectiles. We're also going to unlock a fast travel station here. We don't have to pay for this one, which is great. We just have to hit a switch, and once we ring the bell, then the stag will come running. We will explore new areas here. There's a boss here now that we're going to fight. His name is Zero. And this is the first dream encounter that we have here now. We have to use the Dream Nail to challenge this boss. Now he's easy enough, he just has 2 projectiles. When his health goes below half, he will summon 4 projectiles, and he will just fire those projectiles at us. Simple enough fight. This boss will drop 100 Dream Essence, and most of the miniature Dream bosses drop 100 Essence. You have to fight the bigger, larger, more ferocious ones to get more Dream Essence. We can take that Dream Essence, bring it to the Seer, and get lots of nice power-ups. We're also going to ground pound into a new zone here now. There's new enemies down here. These enemies are quite ferocious. Most of the enemies in this section would hit us for 2 points of damage instead of 1, so we have to be very careful when we're fighting these enemies. A good tactic here is to just hit, run away, or just attack downwards and just keep jumping up and down on the enemy. There's some really nice power-ups to get in this area. There's a charmed outer that's amazing. There's also grubs out here that we have to rescue. We will have to get all of the grubs to get over 100% completion. So here is the charm we want. This is the Soul Eater. It's more or less the same as a Soul Catcher, except it uses up 4 charm notches instead of 2. But when you strike an enemy with the Soul Eater charm, you do get a lot more soul every time you strike the enemy. So it just means you can let off a lot more spells. So we unlock a really nice shortcut there, which brings us back to Forgotten Crossroads, just outside of Salubra's house. We're going to talk to Salubra again, and because we have a lot more charms collected, we can buy another charm notch. That means we can equip a lot more charms. To get the next charm notch for 900 geo, we need to get 3 more charms. Now we can buy charms off Salubra, but I won't have enough geo to buy the charm notch once I purchase the other items. But we can always go back to her later on and get those charms, no problem. So because we have acquired new abilities, we can now explore more areas in the starter zone. Because we have the Crystal Heart, which is basically the charged jump, we can now traverse this area and we can get even more power-ups. Now, you don't have to go to these areas to clear the game, but if you want to 100% the game, you will have to go to these zones. So this is another ambush room, and we just get ambushed by 2 types of enemies. The bigger enemy spawns small little flies, and it will spawn those forever until you kill it, and the smaller flies will shoot little projectiles at us. But it doesn't pose too much of a risk. If we just stay on the top platform there, it's easy enough to do. We get a charm here called the Glowing Womb. It's quite the potent charm indeed. It summons little flies and they attack enemies for you, but they use up soul. And because they use up soul, I don't actually end up using that charm at all. So I'm actually back now in the starter area, and this is the very first area that we spawned in, but there's a secret here. Because we can now climb up walls, we can now traverse the rest of the starter area. We come across a new zone called the Howling Cliffs. Now there's a lot of very important stuff here for us. There is a nail sage that we need to talk to. This guy will teach us a special move that we can use with our nail. They're basically charging moves. The first one is the Cyclone Slash. We just have to hold down the melee attack button and then release it, and we unleash a speeding Cyclone. Now I don't actually use it here because this isn't the great boss to use it against, but it does come in handy later on. That is just another dream boss that we get to fight. He's going to give us another 100 Dream Essence. That's going to put us up to 221. We're also going to jump down here now and we're going to collect some more power-ups. So I'm going to pick up a really cool item here called the King's Idol. We can trade that into Liam for lots and lots of geo. We're also going to purchase a map and explore some more areas. Now if we didn't have the lantern, we would not have been able to get down here in one piece at all. This area is going to give us a really nice charm that we need later on called Joni's Blessing. Basically, it gives us a ton more health. We're also going to get the essence tree and we're going to run around and collect all of the essences. This took ages because this area is so big and there's so many essences to collect. There's also a lot of secrets in this area. What I just activated here was the DLC, which is called the Grimm Troupe. Now we won't be doing the DLC straight away because it's just way too hard. We need lots more power-ups before we can do it. But we'll activate it now and then we will do it later on. So we're back to Greenpath, and because we have our charge jump ability and the wall climb, there's a lot more areas we can now discover in the Greenpath zone. So we're also going to get another nail smith here. This is going to be the second nail art that we are going to learn. And there's a total of 3 nail arts we can learn in the game. This one is the Great Slash. Now all of the slash arts are very handy, especially when it comes to dealing with certain types of enemies. For example, the Cyclone Slash can hit multiple times. It's very good for DPS. The Great Slash is really good for enemies with shields or enemies that you just want to hit once and then run away. So it's good for hit and run tactics. We also come across the Hunter in Greenpath. He's going to give us a Hunter's Journal. Now, if we want to 100% this game, we have to fill up the journal. And the best way to fill it up is by killing every enemy the game has to offer. There's no other way around it. Unfortunately, we can't sit down and have a cup of tea with these bugs. We have to take out our nail and show them who's boss. So we're not doing great game progression at the moment. We're doing a lot of backtracking because we have a lot of utility moves. And the more backtracking we do and the more powered up items we get, the easier the main game progression is going to be. So because I had the lantern, I was able to go into this zone and get another mask shard. I'm also able to fight this dream boss. Now this guy is basically a hit and run. We're just going to charge him an attack, strike him and run away, because there's so many floating projectiles, they can do some damage if they hit us. So we just charge an attack, hit him, run away, wait for him to teleport, rinse and repeat until he's dead. Now this guy will give us 200 dream essence instead of 100 because he's just that bit harder. We're going to fight a main boss now. Now this boss is actually quite simple. All it does is just charge you. Sometimes it might try to jump over you or jump on your head. That's about it. We just have to hit it a few times with the nail, maybe throw 1 or 2 spells into it, and it dies pretty easily. It does drop a nice bit of money, 296 geo. That isn't bad, that will go a long way. Because we have our charge jump, there's another gauntlet we can do here now, and this will bring us up to a grub that we can rescue, which is really nice. At the end of the gauntlet, we finally get another vessel fragment. That's 2 out of 3 right now. Once we get the last fragment, we will receive another soul container, which is going to be super handful. Right down into the fog canyon. This place is absolutely lethal. The small jellyfishes are harmless enough, but the big ones, when struck, will lock back onto you and explode upon impact, dealing 2 masks of damage. So we're now in a place called the Queen's Station. There's a small little gauntlet here that we get to do, and the reward at the end will be a lovely mask shard. Not too bad at all. Just need 1 more mask shard now for another maximum piece of health. We're also going to get the toll machine here, 120 geo. That's going to come in very handy later on when we fast travel back. So we're now transversing more of the Fog Canyon area. There's a grub that we're going to rescue here. We will eventually get an ability that will make us impervious to the acid that we see below, making transversion of most of the areas in the game simple. That's the Spore Shroom charm. That charm can be used in combination with tons of other charms. It basically releases spores every time you heal. Enemies caught up in the spores take damage. I just got the elegant key there. We'll use that in a second to get a huge power up. We're also going to venture more into the Fog Canyon, and we found a place here called the Overgrown Mound. Now this place is covered in flies that lock onto you and charge towards you, but just a few strikes you can pack them in no problem. The main reason we come here is to get a new spell ability called Howling Wraiths. It is an absolutely devastating spell, and like all of the other spells that we've collected so far, it can be upgraded, but that's later on in the video. In terms of attack spells, that is all the spells that we've learnt now for this whole game. There are no other attack spells that we can learn. They can all be upgraded though. Now we already have upgraded the Ground Pound to the Discless Dive. We can however make our Vengeful Spirit stronger and the Howling Wraiths much stronger as well. It is back to the Soul Sanctum, but this time we're taking a quick detour, and this door is just to the left of the entrance. Once entering this room, we will be ambushed by a mini-boss. We have fought this guy before, but this time he is much faster, much more ferocious, and adds do spawn occasionally. The problem here is trying to navigate this boss, trying to avoid the attacks that this boss does, and not get hit by the ads at the same time, because those small little ads will slowly but surely home in on us, dealing damage if they make contact. Now, we do have a good bit of health, and we do have some good spell abilities. We do eventually get the better of this boss. This isn't my finest hour when it comes to fighting this boss. I would admit, I am gone a tad bit rusty when it comes to this game. I do have 1 piece of health left, but that's enough to get the job done. Having the Shaman Stone equipped it that makes my spells much stronger is an absolute game changer. I'm now going to get one of the strongest abilities this game has to offer, and this is going to upgrade the very first spell that I got, which was the Vengeful Spirit. It's going to turn it into the Shade Soul. So now when I fire off these lovely projectiles, they're much bigger and they also go through structures. So you can hit a ton of enemies with this spell. It also hits for much bigger damage as well. So I'm going to use up one of my simple keys and I'm going to get access to the Royal Waterways here. It's a whole new area underneath the City of Tears. And there's lots more goodies to grab here, lots more places to explore. Grubs, charms, bosses to fight. Lots of exciting things. This area is house to a whole new bunch of enemies. This enemy is quite irritating because when you defeat it, it would respawn into 2 separate entities. The main boss down in the Royal Waterways is the Dung Defender. This guy is quite a fun fight. It's a nice fluid fight. You have to be on your toes at all times. He will throw loads of dung balls at you. They're simple enough to avoid. When he goes into the ground like this, you can use a Desolate Dive, and that does a lot of damage to him. It also stuns him for a few seconds as well. The fight is more or less just dodge, hit and run tactics. It's easy enough to do. You will drop a really cool charm called the Defender's Crest when he is defeated. The boss has a lot of HP, so it's important to heal occasionally when you have the opportunity to do so. The boss does pause for a few seconds through most of his movesets, so it's a good opportunity to get maybe 1 or 2 masks back if you can afford it. Eventually we will get to fight a much harder version of this boss, known as the White Defender. That's much later on in the video, and he is a much harder version of what we just killed right now. So he does drop a nice charm for us. That's 1 more charm in the bag. The Defender's Crest will basically emit a poisonous cloud around their character constantly. It doesn't use up any solar resources. It's very handy for fights where you're constantly up close and personal. So because we went through the Royal Waterways, we now got to the second half of the City of Tears. Lots more goodies to collect here. There's also loads of little houses we can go into, such as this, and we can explore further. There's actually a secret in this room. Once we've all these enemies killed, if we go back to the right hand side of the wall there, and just do a little jump, there's a secret here that will bring us into a special room with a special type of enemy. Now this, I could call it a mini-boss. It has an absolute ton of HP, but this guy will drop a huge amount of geo up on defeat, which is really nice. And this is the kind of geo that you want, especially when you're kind of starting out in the adventure. We're going to get this toll machine here for 300 geo. This is the King Station unlocked. We're going to go back to Salubra here now, and we're going to get another charm notch. She only has 1 charm notch left to get, but we do have to collect a lot more charms before we can get that. We're also going to pick up the Quick Focus charm. This just means we can focus a lot faster, meaning we can heal a lot faster. We don't actually use it because it's quite greedy when it comes to charm notches. I'm just going to show you my quick setup here. I'm going to equip the Defender's Crest with the Spore Shroom. This means when I heal myself, the spores will turn into an extension of the Defender's Crest, so it's just going to be a bigger poisonous cloud around my character. I have some money left over, so I'm going to purchase another vessel fragment. This is the first complete vessel that we've now completed. That's going to be 1 extra soul container for us. It just means we can hold more soul, we can unleash more spells, or we have a little bit more healing in the tank if we need it. I'm also going to purchase some mask shards here as well. We're basically going to use up all of our money with Sly, because all of these items will be needed to 100% the game. It is now time to do some backtracking, some exploration. Because we have so many utility abilities now, we've got the charge jump, we can climb up walls, we can dash, there's loads of things we can do. It makes sense to go back to some of the starter zones and collect items we couldn't get when we were first here. All of these items will come in super handy later. So we're going to venture forth. This area is just after you beat the Dung Defender. This is known as the Ancient Basin. So we're going to start by getting the essence tree here. We're going to get all these essences. These essences are super important because eventually we can go back to the seer. We can show her how much essence we have collected. She will give us really powerful rewards. Some of the rewards aren't great, but the later rewards are really good. I mean, you're going to get very important items from her, such as the Pale Ore, which is needed to upgrade the nail. She's going to give you a mask shard. She's going to awaken the dream nail so you can get into more of the endgame content. There's loads of great stuff we need from the seer to progress the game properly. She's also going to give us a charm here called the Dream Wielder, and this speeds up the animation of striking enemies with the Dream Nail. When you strike enemies with the Dream Nail, sometimes it'll tell you their thoughts. It's really good for the lore aspect of the game, but you also get back soul. This charm comes in super handy during specific boss fights, when you have a few seconds to use that Dream Nail to get soul if you really need it for healing, or if you need it for using spells. She also unlocked a secret area for us to explore, and inside this area, we get to pick up a King's Idol. We can trade that in now for lots of geo at the merchant. We also get an essence tree inside here as well, which is going to give us even more essence for our Dream Nail. Now, this zone has tons of Dream NPCs. We can strike them with the Dream Nail, and we can get a few essences for each strike. But once we strike any of those Dream NPCs, we will be attacked by a ferociously difficult NPC that you can't really defeat. So because we have a pale ore, we're going to put an 800 geo here, and we're going to make our nail a little bit stronger. We will need all of the strength now we can muster going forward, because we're now going to be fighting more difficult bosses. The more damage we can do, the better. There's 2 more upgrades to go to fully maximise the potential on our dream nail. So we're back now down at the Royal Waterways, and we're going to get an ability here that will make us impervious to the acid that we see all over Hollownest. But first, we have to go through a little gauntlet. You also get ambushed. Loads of these little soldiers come out and they think they can take us on. Not a hope. We have upgraded spells. We can one-shot most of these guys. No problem at all. Once that gauntlet is finished with, we're going to go to an area here called Isma's Grove. This is going to give us a really cool ability called Isma's Tear, and it just makes us immune to the acid all around the map. There's now a lot more places we can travel to, because the acid won't do any damage to us. There's very, very few places now at this stage of the game where we can't actually go. Eventually though, we will end up with all of the utility abilities, so we can basically go anywhere that we like. We will need to go everywhere, of course, to get 100% of the game. So we're now going to explore more of the ancient Basin. This zone has an absolute ton of items that's really going to help us out. One of the big utilities we want to pick up here now is the double jump, but we will have to fight a boss before we can nab that ability. While making our way to the boss, we come across a little area here. It's like quite a lot of enemies here to kill, but once all of these enemies are defeated, a good old friend of ours will jump up out of the ground. Her name is Cloth, and there will be a few more interactions with Cloth before we get to the big boss fight later on in the video, where Cloth really helps us out. We managed to find another pale ore here. Now we do need 2 pieces of pale ore to get the next nail upgrade, and then the final nail upgrade will require 3 pieces. And there's a few more places we can go early on to get pale ores if we want, but because we have such devastating spells available to us, we're not going to put a whole lot of focus into that at the moment. Instead, we're just going to forge on here in the ancient basin, and we're going to fight the boss to get the double jump. Once the double jump has been obtained, we can go back to the Crystal Peak, which is basically the mining area, and we can ascend the peak of that huge mountainous region, which will reward us with another pale ore. But first, we're going to wipe out all of these enemies that are blocking our path, and we're going to take on a new boss here now. This guy is known as the Broken Vessel. In all fairness, he's not too bad at all. I didn't have a whole lot of trouble with him. He does jump around occasionally, but when he hits you, he only does 1 piece of damage, so it's not too bad at all. We have a lot of health at our disposal, we have extremely powerful spells, we have a good charm setup. Even if we take the occasional piece of damage from him, there's plenty of opportunities to heal. The biggest challenge with this fight are those little ads that spawn occasionally. But I just end up going for full offensive tactics here instead of trying to heal, and he goes down very quickly. The only reason he went down so fast is because I had the upgraded ground pound, which was the Deathless Dive, that does a ton of damage. I also had the Shade Soul, which is the upgraded form of the Vengeful Spirit, so I mean it does make quite a short work of a lot of bosses in this game. It's now time to get the double jump. It's actually called the Monarch Wings. It's basically a double jump. But using this now, we can traverse a lot more areas that Hollownest has to offer. In terms of the main quest, we actually haven't gotten that far. We've just been primarily going into these side areas, into these secret areas, and getting tons of power-ups. We're also going to fight the dream version of the Broken Vessel. This is known as the Last King. Now, this is a bit different to all of the other dream fights that we've done, because with this one you go into an actual dream. If we die here, we don't actually die outside of the dream. We just respawn just outside of the dreamer's body. It just makes it very easy to re-attempt the fight over and over again. Some of these dream fights are extremely hard. Now, I do end up one-shotting this one without much problems because I do have some ferociously powerful spells. We do have to pay attention though, because the boss is more fluid, he's more aggressive. Also, the ads that spawn down upon us are much faster. But because I had the Defender's Crest with the Spore Shroom, the Poisonous Clouds took care of those ads, trivializing the fight. Now, because we fought one of these big dream bosses, we get a lot more essence for our work. We get 300 essence in total there. That puts us up to 968 essence, which is really nice. We're also going to go to the Palace Grounds to get another fast travel station. We will go back to the Palace Grounds later on to go through a ferociously hard platform zone. And when I say ferociously hard, that's an understatement. It will take me more or less a full day in real life to actually get through it in one piece. That's how hard it is, I'm not going to lie to you. So we're going to visit this area again. We have more dream essences. We have over 700 now. So it's time to get another upgrade. This time we're just going to be rewarded with a vessel fragment. That's not too bad. But the next upgrade we're going to get is the ability to warp around the map using the dream nail. Now we can only set one warp gate at a time. It's best to place the warp gate in an area where there isn't a whole lot of fast travel stations around. So this turns out to be a huge time saver for setting up this dream gate. Because we have the double jump, we can go back to the Crystal Peak, we can get up to this new area. So this is the stronger version of the Crystal Guardian. This is the Enraged Guardian. Now, this guy will hit us for 2 masks instead of 1. His attacks are much faster, he's more ferocious. Because we have the double jump, it does make it a lot easier to dodge those laser beams. He goes down quick enough because we have the nice overpowered spells. We do get a nice mask shard for completing this fight, which is really good. 3 more mask shards to go for another maximum piece of health. We can now ascend up the peak of this huge mountainous region. But before we get up to the top, there's a lot more goodies we can grab, a lot more grubs we can save, of course. Once we get to the top, we will be rewarded with another pale ore. That will make 2 we'll have in our inventory in total. That means we can go back to the lovely nail smith and upgrade our nail to its 2nd strongest form. It will take us a while though to get the final 3 pale ore pieces. You get 1 in the Colosseum, you get 1 off the grubs, and you get the last from beating a boss down in the deep nest zone, which we'll get to in a little moment. So this is the first and last time we'll be going up to the peak. All that's up here is just the pale ore. Once we have this, we can just jump straight back down and progress on with the journey. Before we leave the Crystal Peaks, because I had most of the utility abilities the game had to offer, it made sense to just transverse the zones I couldn't get into before and just nab all the power-ups and the grubs. Now that did look like a grub, it was actually a grub mimic, and unfortunately we will encounter a lot more of those as we progress further into the game. You don't know really if it's going to be a grub or a grub mimic, unless of course you've cleared the game before and you can memorize. The grub mimics are ferocious enough. Now they only hit for 1 mask, but they are quite fast, so sometimes it can give you a bit of a shock when you break one open from the glass and it decides to turn on you instantly. We do have a little bit of geo, so we will go back to Sly here and try to purchase up the rest of his wares. That was 1500 geo for another mask shard. That is the last one we can purchase from Sly, and this vessel fragment is the last vessel fragment we can also get from Sly. The rest are out in Hollownest, somewhere hiding in God only knows where. So, because we have the double jump, we were able to get up into this section. This is just at the top of the King's Station. It's another Hollownest seal. 450 geo for that, once we trade into our lovely vendor friend. We're also going to progress the main quest a bit, but first, we're going to do some more exploration around the City of Tears. We just got ambushed here by an absolute ton of enemies, but most of the spells that we can utilise are more than enough to one-shot these enemies. The prize, of course, is another vessel fragment. That is 3 out of 3 again. That is another soul container for us. Just 1 soul container left. That's 3 more vessel fragments to find in the world before we have all the vessel fragments got. Now because I had 2 pale ores, I paid 2000 geo to the nailsmith, and he's going to upgrade my nail to the 2nd strongest version. We just have to find 3 more now out in the world, and we can get the strongest nail the game has to offer. It's very important that we upgrade our nail to its max, not only to get the achievements, but also when we're fighting the final couple of bosses. Every single little bit of damage we can squeeze out will matter, it'll make a difference. So we're now back in the Royal Waterways. We're just exploring the region here. Just picked up another mask shard there. I noticed a secret room here, and it is host to a boss known as the Fluky Mar. All this boss does is spawn ads endlessly. But because our nail has been upgraded, we can wipe these ads out in just 1 strike. And after a couple of spells, this boss goes down easy enough. You can fight him much earlier in the game. To be honest, I just forgot about him when I was doing exploration, so I came back and took him out no problem. He drops a charm called the Flukiness. It basically alters the way our projectile spell works. Instead of shooting out a spirit orb, we basically shoot out little flukes. It basically turns our spell into a shotgun ability. But we're not going to utilise that in this challenge. I'm happy enough with the way my spells are. So we're now going to progress the main journey. We're now back in the City of Tears, but we're working our way upwards. We're going to fight a couple of bosses on the way, and then we're going to encounter our very first Dreamer, which is going to be 1 of 3. Once all the 3 Dreamers have been defeated, we can then fight the Hollow Knight. So the big boss of the City of Tears is known as the Watcher Knights, and there's a few of these that spawn up. Now, this was my first time fighting the Watcher Knights in quite some time. I do struggle a bit. I do actually die in this attempt. I do manage to defeat them, but I forgot to record the footage during the attempt where I defeat them. So I'm just going to show a little bit of the battle footage here, and then I'm going to show the area after these guys where you get to collect all of the goodies after they die. But basically, once you beat 1, 2 spawn every time, so you have to fight 2 always. Now, because we had the Shade Soul, it went through enemies like butter. It done an absolute ton of damage. I could do a much better job during this attempt at dodging the bosses, but if I'm being honest, I was using a Nintendo Switch Pro controller, and for some reason that controller doesn't work quite well with Steam, so occasionally the controller just decided to not work, and I was taking damage that I really shouldn't have been taking. Eventually I do swap out my Nintendo Switch Pro controller with a PlayStation 4 controller, which makes life way easier. I was quite stubborn through 3/4 of the game where I used the Pro controller, which led to a lot of deaths. So it's now time to go into our first dream event here. So this is the first main dreamer. There's 3 of these in total, and you've seen one, you've seen them all. The challenge here is getting to these dreamers. None of them put up a fight. You just have to whack them a few times and then absorb all of their soul energy, and that's basically it. You weaken the seal to the Hollow Knight. That's 1 seal weakened, 2 seals to go. But here's the thing, once all of the seals have been broken and we fight the Hollow Knight, that's not the final boss of the game. The Hollow Knight is basically the tutorial finished with when it comes to playing through this game. This game is huge. So we just get a cutscene here. It just shows one of the masks disappearing from the egg. Eventually we get to go into that egg and we'll have an epic fight ahead of us. So we're going to go back to the Soul Sanctum, and we're going to fight the dream version of the Soul Master. This guy is known as the Soul Tyrant. His moveset is more or less the same, except he moves a lot faster, he fires a lot more projectiles, and one of his main attack abilities here, instead of 4 floating projectiles, he just summons 6. But even though he's a bit faster, when he does summon those 6 projectiles, it is a great time to heal, if you witness out our health a little bit. Now we do have some pretty good charms, so he doesn't pose too much of a challenge at all. If we deal enough damage, we do stun him for a few seconds. It's also a great time to get in some heals. This fight, like many, it's a marathon, not a sprint. I do cut out a lot of the content, but the reason for it is that he just does the same things over and over again. So once you kind of master the art of dodging most of the attacks he has to offer, it's just a simple story of rinse and repeating until he goes down. The final phase here is a bit harder than his original version because he has a lot more HP and the projectiles are a lot faster. Also, when he does his desolate dives here as well, it's much easier to jump and dash instead of just dashing on the ground. That is another Dream Boss guild. This guy will drop a few hundred Dream Essence for us as well, powering up our Dream Mail. That means more goodies from the Seer NPC. So we had 988, that brought us up to 1200, almost 1300 Dream Essence, so we got quite a bit from him. We're now going to go to the Kingdom's Edge zone here. There's a lot of stuff we get to pick up in this zone, including a very difficult fight with Hornet. There's also some really nice charms we can get here as well. Now the enemies of this zone are a bit more difficult than what we're normally used to. We will approach the Nail Master here too. Now this guy does charge 800 Geo to learn his Nail Master ability. We have to buy it though. This is the 3rd and final Nail Master art. This is the dash slash. So we just have to hold down X to charge up our melee attack, dash, release X, and we get a really cool dash slash attack. It's very good for hit and run tactics. We're also picking up the quick slash charm, and we use that charm quite a bit in some of the later more intense boss battles. It just means we can attack a lot faster than normal, doing more damage per second. We're going to rescue the grubs that we see, and then it is time for the big epic fight with Hornet. This is the 2nd fight with Hornet and the last fight, thank God. This Hornet has much more HP. She attacks much more frequently. She's faster. It really is a very difficult fight. A lot of people say it's one of the harder fights in the game. We're coming down with more of a defensive charm setup. We have the Defender's Crest, so if she gets close, she will take some damage. We also have our Shaman Stone, so our spells do hit a lot harder. This fight, like many others, is more of a marathon, it's not a sprint. Dodging her attacks is key to victory. She will occasionally go into a parry state where she will hold her weapon and beckon us to attack. If we do attack, she will counter-attack immediately. So it is best to use spells which goes into that state and not hit her with the nails straight away. She will also conjure up these projectiles that will remain stationary. It's in our best interest to whack those out of the way to free up space so we can evade her more deadlier attacks. She will throw that needle she has occasionally. Normally we can avoid it, we just have to jump, strike her a few times and then back away. She does have a lot of threat abilities that she likes to use. Normally though, when she uses those, we will follow up with our own spells that do significant damage. So I do show the whole fight here because I just wanted to show people how lethal this fight actually is. That was my first attempt, so I was very happy to be able to beat her there. Sometimes it can take me 4 or 5 tries, she can be quite lethal. So we get a new zone here called the Cast Off Shell. We get a power up called the King's Brand. Using this power up we can now access the Abyss and get even more power ups down there, including an upgrade to our dash ability. Before we can leave the zone, loads of rubble fall down about our character. Not to worry though, an unlikely ally will come to our rescue. Hornet decides that we're actually worth saving after all, and she flies away off into God only knows where. It is now time to enter the Colosseum of Fools. There are 3 levels to this Colosseum. Each level is much harder than the previous one. These enemies are quite common to fight. I just show a few clips of each fight in the Colosseum. Basically it's just a massive gauntlet of enemies continuously approaching. We just have to defeat them and heal in between waves. That's basically it. Coming in here with very specific charm setups can either make or break a run for you in the Colosseum. I'm going with a more defensive charm setup so I can focus more on healing because the gauntlets are quite big. Now there's some really good prizes we can win at the Colosseum, but in order to 100% this game, we do have to complete all 3 levels, especially if we want to complete the Hunter's Journal as well. There's certain enemies you encounter in the Colosseum that you can't encounter outside around Holonest. The first prize is a charm match, and that is greatly welcome. Charm matches are quite rare. There's only so many charm matches you can get in the game. We will get a bonus charm match by doing the DLC, which is really nice. But the more charm matches we can get, the more charms we can equip. So we're now doing the second trial. That means more new enemies to fight, but also more prizes to be had. Upon completing the second trial, we will be rewarded with a pale ore, and that is one of 3 that we need to get the final nail upgrade. Now the second trial is significantly harder than the first. We have spikes on the ground forcing us to go up and use the platforms, so that means our maneuverability is very limited. Now we do have most of the utility moves the game has to offer. We have the dash, we have the double jump, so it's not too difficult to dodge most of the attacks these monsters can throw at us. These exploding birds are absolutely lethal. If one of those birds hits us, we take 2 masks of damage instead of 1. Occasionally the walls will close in on us like this. This is the hardest part of the second trial, where we're forced to fight from the walls. We can't actually walk on the ground because there's spikes, and those enemies do home in us charge. These are the final bosses that we get to fight before the second trial is finished with, and they're not too difficult at all. They do spam tons of projectile attacks, but it's telegraphed fairly well, not too difficult to avoid. Now, I don't have footage here of myself picking up the pale ore because I actually done this on 2 different occasions. I forgot to record the first completion, so I just done the second trial again, just to show you that I completed it. I had enough charms now assembled to purchase the last charm notch from Salubra. The last thing we can get from her now is her blessing, but we need to get 13 more charms to get that. That's basically getting all of the charms in the game. So we're going to visit the lovely grub father here, and these are all of the grubs we have rescued so far. There's still a lot more grubs in the game that we have to rescue, but for every grub we do rescue, the grub father will give us prizes, and the prizes do get better the more grubs that we get our hands on. As we can see here now, we get tons of goodies from all the grubs we've collected so far, including a mask shard. That's really nice. That's 1 more piece of health that we can add to our lovely character. But we're also going to get other stuff too, such as charms, and we can even get pale ores from doing this as well. So I just picked up the Grub Song charm here. Grub Song will give us back soul every time we take damage. That's really good for ferociously difficult bosses. A Holonest seal is handy for trading in for more geo. We're going to visit our friend here. His name is Leg Eater. He will sell us 3 fragile charms. Fragile means if we die with the charm equipped, the charm will break and we have to go back to Leg Eater and purchase the charm again. So I'm just going to purchase these 3 charms, but I just won't use them. I'll keep them in my inventory, I won't actually put them on my belt, so even if I die, those charms won't be lost. I need those charms in my inventory if I'm going to get Salubra's Blessing later on. Now those fragile charms can be turned into unbreakable charms, but we do need the DLC that we will be playing through later on in the video. So eventually we do turn some into unbreakable charms that we can use in the later boss fights. So this is a gauntlet in the Fog Canyon. It's absolutely lethal. If we touch off any of those eggs, they will explode, dealing 2 points of damage instead of 1. Luckily, we do have the Shade Soul, and it is a projectile that can fire through most terrain in the game, so we can use that to quickly clear the way of most of these explosives, grabbing another fabulous charm notch to our inventory. So that's 1 extra charm notch for doing the Colosseum, and here is another charm notch from completing the gauntlet inside the Fog Canyon. It is now time to explore more areas and get even more goodies. Here is a grub hiding out just to the entrance of another dreamer. But before we can get to that dreamer and eliminate him, we do have to fight a boss in this zone. Getting down to the boss will be super simple because we have Isma's Tear. Jumping into the acid won't do us any damage at all. Now this boss is quite easy because I haven't taken on the bosses so long, and because I'm still using the Nintendo Switch Pro Controller, I do lose out on a lot of functionality, which is why it takes so much damage. That's why this fight was barely won. The fight itself isn't that hard. We just have to wait for our NPC friend to burst the bubble, then we can attack the boss for a few seconds, rinse and repeat, dodge some attacks, and that's basically it. The fight is simple enough. So because that boss is now dead, we can now go to the second dreamer, and we can destroy that NPC, and that will be 1 less seal to worry about. Occasionally we will come across items such as this. That was a tank filled up with Lumaflies, and that just unlocks a nice index in our Hunter's Journal. So this is the second dreamer now that we're going to strike down. We're going to absorb all of the soul, and there's just 1 dreamer left, which is down in Deep Nest, before we can fight the main boss of the game, the Hollow Knight. Now fighting the Hollow Knight will not give us 100% completion. There's actually multiple endings of this game depending on how much progress you've made, depending on, you know, if you've 100% of the game or only 80% of the game, for example. So I will end up fighting the Hollow Knight a few times just to show you different endings of the game. So we're going to do a bit more explanation here. We're back to Greenpath, and because we can transverse the acid, we can get into this zone and we can pick up a new charm called the Shape of Oon. It's actually a pretty cool charm. If we equip it, it just means that every time we heal, we'll turn into a little slug, and we can also move at the same time. It is handy for certain boss fights. We don't really use it though. Because I have the King's Brand, I can now venture down into the Abyss. But I'm going to equip all of the charms that increase my maximum health. The reason why I'm doing this is because there's a special room in this region that we can only access if we have a certain number of masks available to us. And what we have here now is just about enough masks to get into this room to get a very special charm. So for every mask that we have, basically every piece of health that we have, 1 of those bulbs will light up blue. Once enough bulbs have lit up, we can go into this cool zone. We can pick up a new charm called the Lifeblood Core. And just like the previous health charms we have, it just gives us more health to work with. We're also going to enter a new zone, use our Howling Wraiths ability, and we're going to get a really cool scene here where our ability is going to be upgraded. Our Howling Wraiths is now going to get a massive attack boost, and it's going to turn into a new deadly ability called Abyss Shriek. Now Abyss Shriek is used on quite a lot of bosses. It's going to make short work of most of the bosses in the game. That's bosses that you're going to be fighting from below. So you're going to see that ability being used quite a lot in some of the upcoming fights, and it is an absolutely devastating ability. Especially if you sync it up with the Shaman Stone, which we use all the time, so our spells will hit harder. Now it does use up quite an amount of soul, so having those extra Vessel Fragments, you know, makes a huge difference. Also, we can use the Spell Twister charm as well, which will reduce the amount of soul used when casting spells. So there's lots of cool setups we can use. It's now time to go and get a much better dash ability, and this is the main reason we've come down here into the Abyss. We're going to stand in this chalice here filled up with this void water. Eventually the water will consume us and our dash ability will get upgraded. We now have the Shade Cloak. It's the exact same as the dash. The only difference is every couple of seconds we can dash through something we won't take damage. There's certain fights in this game that are extremely hard to do without having that ability. If we look at the Radiance that we get to fight later on, the Hollow Knight can be quite troublesome as well, and other endgame bosses. So this is another Dream Warrior that we get to fight here now. He's simple enough because we had the Abyss Shrink ability. Just a few hits on it and it packed him in straight away. We will get a small little bit of Dream Essence for beating this boss. We go from 1300 up to 1400. Once we get to 1500 Dream Essence, we can unlock a new power up. So it's time to finally go into Deep Nest, get all the goodies, destroy the final Dreamer, and then progress the rest of the game. So Deep Nest is a very dark and dreary place. If you come down here without the Lumify Lantern, you're going to have a very hard time traversing the place. Eventually we will fall deeper into a hot springs. The hot springs are really nice. Basically it refills up your soul gauge to maximum, and it also refills up your health. We're also going to grab the bench because this place has so many traps. Dying in this place will be quite common. Though I don't die too much because I've come down here so many times. We are going to fight a boss. This boss is called Nox. Now once we complete the Nox fight, he will give us access to the last pale ore that we need to finally upgrade our nail to its maximum potential, the pure nail. But first, we gotta send this boss packing. If you're not used to fighting this boss, he can be quite hard, but there are certain places you can stand in the boss zone to make life a little bit easier. Standing around here is a great position to get in a few sneaky attacks. At the same time, you know, the boss will find it very hard to hit you. All the boss does really is just spew out projectiles. He will occasionally jump up onto the ceiling and he will drop projectiles on us. He'll come back down, attempt to charge us. So it's just dodging a few projectiles, jumping over the boss and hitting him here and there, and he will go down for you eventually. Not the hardest boss in the game, not by a long shot. That is the final pale ore we need to finally upgrade our nail. But we're not going to leave Deep Nest just yet. There's a lot of other important items we need to get that lovely 100% achievement. We're going to go to the failed tramway section here. We're going to fight a few giant bugs, and we're going to get a key item here called a tram pass. This means we can now use the trams of Hollownest. The trams also act as fast travel points, but we also need to use the trams to get to areas otherwise it would be impossible to reach. We're also going to fight a dream boss here as well. This is just another mini dream boss. He's actually quite difficult because he spawns these blade projectiles that lock onto you and follow you around the map. It's basically a DPS race. The more damage we can dish out now in quick succession, the better. We will occasionally lose health. There's no point trying to heal during this fight. The best advice you give is to come in here with as much soul as you can muster and just spam spells at this guy until he dies. Upon defeat, we go from 1400 Dream Essence right up to 1600. We get 200 Dream Essence for beating him, which was nice. There's also a secret location in the Deep Nest called the Weaver's Den, and we're going to get a really cool charm here. There's also these really cool NPCs that don't really interact with us, but using our Dream Nail, you know, we can get some sort of interaction out of them. More importantly, we're going to get the Weaver Song charm. This is a charm I use a lot. It basically spawns 3 little Weaverlings that don't use up any soul, and they will attack anything that gets in a certain proximity of our character. Also, when they attack, they will generate soul for us, so they come in really handy, especially when you're doing fights and you're focusing on dodging. They will accumulate little bits of damage here and there. They do make the difference. So we sat on a bench there, we got trapped, we got knocked out, and we now find ourselves trapped on a giant web. We are now inside the beast's den. The only beast inside this den is me, to be honest with you. God bless these bugs. Now those larger bugs can be quite lethal. If we take a hit from those larger bugs, they will do 2 points of damage. The best tactics to use your spells are, if you're low on soul, just hit and run tactics. If we see grubs, we will of course grab them. The last thing I want to do is have to go back into this place to pick up anything that I've forgotten. So I do map out this place thoroughly before I go up to the Dreamer and defeat him. The challenge here is actually navigating this place, getting through the hordes of enemies that are in our way so we can get to the Dreamer. So you could say that this is just one big huge boss gauntlet that we have to get through in order to get to the final Dreamer here. And this Dreamer works the exact same way as the last 2 Dreamers. It just stands there, we whack it a few times with the nail, absorb its soul, and that then is all the seals broken, so we can do the Hollow Knight fight anytime we want. The great thing about the Hollow Knight fight is that when we do that fight, the game doesn't save afterwards. We can do the fight over and over again. And the reason for that is because there's multiple endings in this game, and that's why the fight needs to be repeated. So that is the third Dreamer defeated. We get some really cool piece of lore here. This is Hornet. She says, "Mother, forgive my inaction, but another path may be possible." So that was Hornet's mother that we just defeated there. And Hornet seems to be fairly happy about this because Hornet knows we need to break the seals in order to re-contain the plague that is destroying Hollownest from the inside out. I now have 3 payloads, so I got 1 from beating Nask, I got 1 from the Grubfather, and I got 1 from going to the top of the Crystal Peak. This is going to give us the Pure Nail. It's the strongest nail in the game. The only way to make this stronger is by equipping certain charms. For example, the Fragile Strength would make it stronger. That's about it though. So once the Nailsmith has our nail finally upgraded, he's basically finished with us. He then wants us to strike him down. He wants to feel the power of the Pure Nail. Now this is optional. We do not have to strike him down at all. We can just leave him be. Now here is a nice gentle spoiler for you. If we leave him be and we visit one of the Nail Masters, the one that likes to paint, it will show the Nailsmith beside him, and then the Nailsmith will give really nice dialogue saying that he's happy we didn't strike him down because he really gets into the painting skill. So you don't actually have to strike him down there, just so you know, there is a much happier outcome for him. So we're now going to use the tram to get to a new area. It's basically a giant beehive with loads of bee bugs to fight. And all of these bees are pretty harmless, but we do encounter much bigger ones, much deadlier ones, and the boss at the end of this area is also quite the ferocity to deal with. The Hive is home to a charm that we absolutely need to fight certain bosses and to do certain scenarios later on in the game. So it's well worth our time going through this zone and grabbing all of the goodies that lie within. We have to go through the zone anyway to 100% the game. The Hive is a very interesting zone. It has quite the interesting mobs, but it also has a really cool scene here of a bench, and it's locked up in some sort of jelly. So it's really cool you had to strike it a few times for the bench to fall to get it. It was just a nice touch. The Hive also has an essence tree that we need to hit with our Dream Nail and collect up all of the essences. It's very important we get all of the essence trees to grab those valuable achievements, and the more essences we grab, the better prizes we're going to get anyway. So all of these essence trees are absolutely necessary. It's then time to push ahead and fight the big boss of the Hive. This guy is known as the Hive Knight. He's quite fast, the fight is quite fluid. We really have to be on our toes because he teleports all around the area. The area is also quite small, and he tends to charge at us quite a lot. He also summons these orbs that fire out tons of projectiles. I don't do a great job fighting this guy. Thankfully, just as he killed me, my Weaverlings managed to kill him. Even though I had to respawn, he was dead. I was still able to get the Hive Blood Charm, which was absolutely amazing. The Hive Blood Charm is an amazing charm. It will regenerate your health. It does use up 4 charm notches, and it will only regenerate 1 piece of health, which means if you take 2 pieces of damage, you just get 1 health back. So we are going to fight the upgraded version of Dung Defender, the White Defender. This guy has a lot more HP. He's just a lot faster. Everything about him is just better than the Dung Defender. Also, our fabulous ground pound move doesn't seem to work on him. When he burrows into the ground, we just have to make sure we dodge him when he bursts out. He does fire a lot more projectiles at us, so we just have to be super careful. The fight is a huge marathon. He has so much HP. All we can do really is just hit him a few times, hit him with a few spells, and then dodge any sort of attacks that he wishes to throw at us. It is quite a fun fight. It's one of the most fluid fights in the game because he just goes non-stop. He doesn't stay still for too long. But there are pockets in the fight where we can heal once or twice if we hug the corners a little bit. When he goes into his little berserk mode sometimes where he bursts into the ground, he just flings projectiles at us, we can kind of move into the corner like this, and we can get a few masks back, which is very important. Otherwise, he would just whittle us down eventually and kill us. Now when we beat this guy, we don't actually kill him. He'll just go back dreaming again, and he will give us a lot of dream essence. Now we can fight the White Defender over and over again if we want, which is pretty cool. We do get a lot of dream essence for the fight as well. We've got 2,000 dream essence now. As a reward, we're going to get another mask shard. Thank you very much. We're also going to get an Awakened Dream Nail because we have over 2,000 essence. An Awakened Dream Nail means we'll be able to pierce the minds of most, if not all, of the bugs in the game, just for extra lore and dialogue and things like that. We can also access the White Palace, which is a ferociously hard platforming level. You're going to see that in a couple of minutes. We're also going to fight another dream boss here. This is another big fight. If you remember the very first boss we took on, the False Knight, what we have here now is the Failed Champion, an upgraded version. He's much faster. Each attack will hit us for 2 masks. The best advice I can give about this fight is to just go in with an offensive charm setup. Don't try to use defense against this guy. He's too fast. He will literally jump on your head and crush you with his hammer. Rinse and repeat is the exact same tactic as last time. He'll hit the ground on the 3rd attempt, fall through, we strike his head a few times and he's dead. This guy is going to give us a whopping 300 Dream Essence, bringing us from 2,000 up to 2,300, which is really nice indeed. We're now going into an end game zone. These are the Queen's Gardens. There's a couple of items you have to collect in the zone, grubs, charms, you name it, it has it. But this zone is home to a boss, one of the hardest bosses in the game, the Traitor Lord. She is insanely difficult to fight. There's also some essence trees that we can get as well. The zone is covered in spikes. If we touch off those spikes, we lose a piece of health straight away. So we have to be super careful. Once we collect all of the Dream's essence, we're going to pick up a key item here known as the Love Key. This is needed in order to fight a boss later on called the Collector. And once we beat the Collector, he will give us a map which will show us the location of every grub in the game. So any grubs that we have missed, we'll be able to locate down easy enough. We're also going to pick up another Vessel Fragment. Just one more Vessel Fragment to go. So here what we see is an empty eggshell. This is actually the secret area that the stag brings us to because we unlocked all of the fast travel stations. We're now going to fight the ferociously strong Traitor Lord with our good friend Cloth. Now we do have the Shade Cloak, so we can't just dash through the boss every time the boss does a dash attack. Now there is a cooldown to our lovely Shade Cloak, so we have to be super careful not to dash when the boss jumps up into the air and dashes downwards, because we can just move forward to avoid that ability. The boss also has other devastating abilities. She will occasionally hit the ground, unleashing waves. Those waves can be dodged, but it can be quite difficult. She'll also bring out little sickles that you just saw there that are easy enough to dodge as well. Now this is my second attempt fighting this boss. I got very close to getting destroyed, but I managed to beat the boss just by the skin of my teeth. If that boss landed one more hit, I would have died. Here's just a really cool scene of Cloth delivering the finishing blow to our friend, and that is one of the hardest bosses in the game defeated. As a result, we get to go into this cool new place and talk to this white cool looking tree. This tree will basically give us 1/2 of a charm. To get the other half, we have to do a ferociously hard platforming gauntlet. It is crazy hard. So the first half of the charm, it's called the White Fragment. We will get the second half shortly, but first we are going to fight the Collector, because I want to get the Collector's map to get all of the grubs the game has to offer. All the Collector does is just constantly throws little mobs at you, and he does jump down occasionally. When he jumps down, it's very important to do as much damage as you can, or he jumps back up again and spawns more acts. That's basically it. It's just rinse and repeat. Once you've sustained enough damage to him, he will eventually die, and we'll get a key item known as the Collector's Map. It's such a handy item to get all of the grubs the game has to offer. Like, there's grubs hidden in this game, and unless you have the map, you'd never figure out how to get them. Some of them are so well hidden. There are a lot of grubs up here that we can collect. 3 grubs in total in one area, which is really nice. That's the Collector's Map. We now can push LB on our controller, and it will show us the locations of the rest of the grubs. I do quickly run around and grab all those, so we do have to go back to just a few areas that we've been before to get the last couple of grubs. There's also a gauntlet here that we're doing to get another charm called Sharp Shadow. Sharp Shadow is super effective against certain bosses in this game, because it will do damage when we dash into bosses. Combine that with our lovely Shadow Dash and you have an absolutely lethal ability. So this is one of the final gauntlets that we're going to do here now. This is to get the final Soul Vessel. And once we get this Soul Vessel fragment, that will be 3 miniature vessels we have beside our big Soul Vessel. so we can hold even more spell abilities. Getting to it was quite a challenge. We had to constantly attack downwards off those giant centipede enemies and use those as platforms. But that is all of the soul vessels now gotten in the game. All that's left is just a couple of mask shards. So we're now back to the Kingdom's Edge, and we're fighting one of the final dream bosses here. This guy is very hard. I found him to be one of the hardest dream bosses around. I do eventually manage to kill him. It took me about 3 attempts. With just one mask left, I had to be very careful. I just managed to kill him before he got me. I do get 200 dream essence for this fight because he is a little bit harder than most of the other dream bosses that we take on. So we go from 2500 dream essence to 2700. After grabbing all of the grubs, the grub father is super happy. He will award us with the Grubberfly's Elegy. That's one of the final charms we need to get every charm in the game. It just means that if our HP is full and we attack with our nail, energy beams come out, making our nail weapon a kind of close to mid-range weapon instead of just a close range weapon. We're also going to accept a quest here from the Great Mourner. She will give us a delicate flower. This is to get the last mask shard. We have to take this delicate flower all the way to the Queen's Gardens and give it into a statue without taking a single piece of damage. If we get damaged by anything, or if we fast travel, the flower will break. The best way to do this is to travel anyway from the Grey Mourner's location to the Queen's Gardens and kill all the enemies you see along the way. When all the enemies are dead, do not sit on any benches or fast travel, that will reset the enemies. Just manually walk back to the Grey Mourner, accept the quest again, and then make your way back to the desired location that you want to go. This means that most of the deadlier enemies won't spawn, they won't get in your way. It'll just be the smaller enemies that you'll have to contend with, and that's going to make life way easier for us. So there are quite a few zones we have to navigate through, and even though there isn't many enemies around, a lot of the terrain is also lethal. After a couple of attempts, we do finally complete the quest, and as a reward, we finally get the last mask shard we need. This is going to give us our final piece of maximum health, and that is another achievement gotten one step closer to 100%ing this game. Just because we have maximum health isn't going to do us a whole lot of favours when it comes to the future boss we're going to have to fight. We're now going to enter the DLC, and we're going to activate the Grimm Troupe here. We're going to take on a quest here that Grimm is going to give us. Grimm is going to give us a charm that will summon this small little minion. He wants us to make this little minion stronger. And the best way to make it stronger is to fight special enemies that will now spawn around the map for us. It's called Grimm Child. We have to equip the Grimm Child as a charm, so we're just going to get rid of a couple of charms that we've been using, and we'll equip the Grimm Child. It only uses up 2 charm notches, so it's not the end of the world. Grimm Child will also fire out projectiles, so it's not totally useless. All we have to do is fight 3 of those small little flame charms. The Grimm Child consumes the flame. Once we have 3 flames, we can go back to Grimm and we can get some nice rewards. So that was number 2, and that was killed down in Greenpath. Most of these areas we can access very quickly because they're very close to the fast travel stations. Once the 3rd mini-boss has been slain, we can go back to Dirtmouth, enter the Troop Master's tent and have a quick chat with Grimm. He will make our charm, Grimm Child, much stronger, which is really nice for us. The stronger it is, the better. He will then send us out again to fight more mini-bosses. This time the mini-bosses pack a little more of a punch. Once we have those 3 mini-bosses dead, we finally get to fight Troop Master Grimm. This guy is one of the hardest bosses in the game, and if you think this version is hard, wait until you see me fight the Dream version. That version is incredibly hard, and it took me, I'm not going to lie, about 15 attempts to beat his Dream version. I managed to beat this guy on my 2nd attempt. I had experience before fighting this guy in previous playthroughs, but it's been many months since I actually took him on, so I was a bit rusty. I also had to swap out my Nintendo Switch Pro controller for my PlayStation 4 controller because I kept getting disconnected. It was becoming very frustrating. The Pro controller is a very nice controller, but it just wasn't working out for me on Steam. This guy has a few abilities that we have to watch out for. He fires projectiles, roots come up from the ground, he will charge at us and then uppercut into the air, and fireballs will fall down. He will also conjure himself into a ball and fire loads of little projectiles at us from the left and right side, just as we see here. When he does this, if we're quick enough, we can get a good couple of spells launched into him for extra damage. That's more or less it. Once you become used to the fluidity of the fight, once you get used to the speed at which this guy will actually attack us, he becomes quite manageable and he actually becomes quite fun. It is a fun fight once you get used to all the mechanics. When we do beat this guy, he will reward us with an upgraded charm. He will upgrade the Grimm Child yet again, and he will also give us a charm notch, which is really nice. He will send us back out into the world to find 3 more flames, and those mini-bosses are actually quite difficult. They do hit for 2 massive damage instead of 1, and they are found in the more harder to reach places that Hollownest has to offer. Once we have gotten those 3 flames, we can go back into the tent and we can fight the dream version of Grimm. Now I'm going to show a good portion of this fight. It is an insanely hard fight. Nightmare King Grimm is one of the hardest fights in the game. But we do need to beat this guy if we want to get to 100% completion. Now he does have a lot of new abilities. His attacks are very fast, very fluid. He will not let up. He will constantly attack us. Once he has finished one attack, he will go straight into the next. So you have to get really good at learning to dodge his attacks. Now we do have the Hive Blood charm equipped. So if he does land a hit and if we don't take damage for a long while, there is a chance that we can regenerate back to full health, which is really nice. This fight is basically a huge marathon of concentrate. We can't let any of these abilities hit us or we just take so much damage. He also has an absolute ton of HP. This fight can go on for anywhere up to 10 or 15 minutes before he actually goes down. Now we could speed things up. There are windows of opportunity where we could probably get a few spells off, such as when he does this ability. We can hit him with the nail, or I could have used, the Howling Wraiths ability as well and done a really good spell uppercut on him. So this is more or less the whole fight. You've seen most of the movesets. I cut out some of the footage here now and I'll just show you the kind of end result. He does also fly up into his little ball and he will spawn tons of projectiles, just like he does in his original form, but these projectiles are a lot faster. But we managed to dodge them no problem at all. This is the perfect opportunity for an Abyss Shrek. That does immense damage. The more Abyss Shreks we can hit this guy with, the faster he's going to go down. The biggest challenge of this fight is actually keeping concentration for the duration the fight drags on for. Because he has so much HP, any sort of distraction could result in you losing a lot of health very quickly because his attacks are so ferocious. After multiple attempts, he finally goes down. We will get rewarded. Our charm, known as the Grimm Child, will receive a final upgrade. It actually makes for not a bad travel companion. It acts the same way as the Weaverlings, except it just shoots out projectiles at enemies. That is one more achievement in the bag, and that is one of the hardest bosses in the game defeated. It's now time to go and fight the Hollow Knight. So we have all the Dreamers dead. We can now go in and finally take on the main boss of the game. The Hollow Knight is not the hardest boss, not by a long shot, but we do have to beat him in order to get access to the hardest boss the game has to offer. Now if you're not used to fighting the Hollow Knight, he can give a lot of problems. The fight is quite fluid. He does attack constantly. He doesn't give you a whole lot of time to heal up. Once all of the chains has been destroyed, we can now have at it. Let's see if we can defeat the Hollow Knight and unlock the first ending of the game. So he has some moves similar to Hornet, where he will beckon us to attack, he will do a parry. If we do attack him when that parry is active, he will counter attack immediately. His dash ability is easy enough to dodge because we have the Shade Cloak. We can just dash through him no problem. And he has other attacks here like projectiles coming out. They're easy enough to dodge as well. We do get hit with one, but if we focus enough, it's simple enough to dodge. Once certain requirements have been met, when this guy gets into his final phase just before we kill him, we can tap into a special boss known as the Radiance. We will be fighting the Radiance to 100% the game, but we can't fight the Radiance just yet. We still have to go to the horrendous, unforgiving White Palace and traverse that area, which we'll be doing very soon. For now, we're just going to beat the Hollow Knight and unlock the first ending of the game. As I said before, there are multiple endings, so we will get to see a few, which will be pretty fun. So once we have absorbed all of this plague, you guessed it, we become the new Hollow Knight. The only difference is it doesn't take 3 Dreamers to put a seal on us. We just make our own seal, and this will hopefully contain the plague forever. So it's a really sad ending, but it's a worthy ending because the main protagonist here, the new Hollow Knight, has saved Hollownest from a tragic fate. Now that all of the plague has been absorbed, the bugs won't go mad anymore, and maybe Hollownest can rebuild itself back into the beautiful kingdom it once was. We now get the credits. I'm just going to skip those, but more importantly, we're going to get the game completion statistics. At the moment, we have 105% of the game done. There's a few things left to do. The total playtime at the moment has been 12 hours 40 minutes. I can do better, but it's been a while since I played the game, so that's why it's taken me so long to get to this point. It's now time to go into the unforgiving White Palace. This is such a hard location. Before we can enter the White Palace, we have to do a little mini boss fight here. This guy isn't so bad. Compared to the other bosses we fought, this guy is literally just a walk in the park. He does have a boomerang ability that comes back. Simple enough to dodge. Once he's dead, we get to enter the White Palace. Put simply, the White Palace offers the most challenging platform experience Hollow Knight can give. We will need every single one of our utilities to be able to complete this level. Now, I have done the White Palace a few times over many save files. I have some experience with it, but if you're coming in here for the very first time, expect to throw away at least one full day in real life of trying to get around some of these puzzles. They're absolutely crazy. Sometimes you need almost perfect timing to get through some of these gauntlets. It's basically gauntlet after gauntlet of very challenging platforming. As we can see here now, if we don't have the dash or the double jump or the crystal heart, there's not a hope we're getting across this. This area is meant for when you've gotten to the stage where you have all of the utility jumps unlocked in the game. Because we have the double jump and the dash and the shade cloak and everything else, we can do it without too much fuss. I also have the Hive blood charm equipped, so that when I do take damage, I can regenerate that damage if I stay still for long enough. The last thing I want is for all my health to get depleted and start me right back at the start, and it would be such a massive waste of time. So my advice, do not come into this zone unless A, you're extremely confident in your ability that you can do this without the Hive blood charm, or B, get the Hive blood charm and then come in here. This area here is especially challenging. All of these jumps have to be almost perfectly timed. Any sort of miscalculation will result in our death, and we'll have to start at the very start of that particular gauntlet again. Here is another very difficult gauntlet where we have to use a crystal charge jump, but we have to stop the jump before we hit the wall because there's spikes on the other side. This is actually easier compared to most of the other stuff that we have to go through. Most of these attempts you see are successful attempts. Just so you know, I have failed most of these about 5, 6, maybe 10 times before I show the successful ones. So it may look like a simple platforming level when you're looking at the edited footage here, but it wasn't so simple when I was actually playing through it myself. This gauntlet took me about 40 minutes in real life to actually get through. It was extremely hard. I finally reached the final place of this White Palace, which is basically the king sitting on a throne. What we're going to get here is the second half of the charm fragment. When we combine it together, we get the King Soul. Now, we need to go to a bench, equip this King Soul, and we have to go back down to the Abyss and turn it into the Void Heart. And that will get us another achievement, because we need that to 100% the game. We can also then fight the Radiance, which would be pretty cool. So we're back down into the Abyss here now, and we're going to get a couple of cool cutscenes here. So this is like a giant shell. I don't know if this is the shell that we've come out of, but we get a cool cutscene where it shows the king walking away. That must be my brother or my sister just looking at me and then walking away, and I fall back down into the Abyss. Now, don't quote me on this, but my theory is that this Hollow Knight, this person that we're playing, our parents would have been the king and queen of Hollownest. And we are now tasked with getting rid of the plague, restoring balance to Hollownest again. We get a cool cutscene here saying, "You are the Hollow Knight." That's pretty cool. And our King Soul now turns into the Void Heart. Now, the Void Heart is automatically equipped to us as a charm, but it does not use up a charm notch. And all it does is make us impervious to void damage. There's a few things in the game that do void damage, so it's nice to have it. So I'm going to give the Fragile Strength charm to Divine here. She is an NPC that's in one of the DLC tents. She's going to eat that, but we have to give her 15,000 G for her to turn it into an Unbreakable charm. because it's fragile charm at the moment. So she's just going to digest that, poop it out, and we're going to pick up the Unbreakable Strength. I don't bother turning the other charms into Unbreakable charms because I don't need to. Now before we go and fight the Radiance, I do need to go back into the Colosseum, and I have to do the 3rd round. And this is the last boss I have to fight now, and we'll be finished with the Colosseum. Beating this boss will unlock the achievement called the Fool. And that's all we get for doing this 3rd round. We get lots of money and we get an achievement. We don't get any other sort of special items. Now this fight was actually finger-bitingly close. I had 1 piece of health left, there were still 2 bosses. Because of my extra powerful spell abilities, I do manage to beat that other mini-boss quickly enough, which just leaves the bigger fellow. Now the bigger fella on his own isn't too bad. I did have the double jump, I had the shadow dash, so I was able to dodge most of the attacks he thrown out. Eventually I do manage to kill him just by the skin of my teeth. Once he dies, we're more or less finished with the Colosseum of Fools. So this boss is known as the God Tamer, and when we do defeat him, that will be another entry added to our Hunter's Journal. It's important we fill up the Hunter's Journal. If you want to 100% this game, we need to fight every single enemy this game has to offer. Now, we're not finished with the Colosseum area just yet. There is a secret zone here with a secret boss that we will have to kill to get that Hunter's Journal upgraded. This is a secret boss. She's actually quite a fun fight, not too challenging. More of a frustrating fight than a challenging fight, because the moment she sees you, she'll run away and she'll drop traps on the ground. Sometimes the traps can be a bit hard to dodge. Best way to go about it is to come down into the zone with lots of soul and just throw spells at her until she's dead. We can also charge up our nail and try to get a dash strike in. After a few hits, she'll get packed in and we'll get another simple key. Because we now have all the charms, we can go back to Salubra and we can get Salubra's Blessing. The Blessing is extremely overpowered. Basically, anytime we sit on a bench, not only will our health get fully restored as per usual, but our soul will also be filled up to the top. This means fighting the super hard bosses becomes a lot easier because we can go into most of those fights with full soul so that we can open up with tons of spells at the start of the fight and whittle down the boss's HP very quickly. Here's just a cutscene here of Salubra showering us with love and soul. So, it is now time for the deadly fight of this whole video. We are going to fight the Radiance. To actually unlock the Radiance, you have to fight the Hollow Knight again, but at the very end of the fight, Hornet will pin him down with her needle. This gives you the perfect opportunity to strike him with the Dream Nail, bringing you back into the Dream Instance where we fight the super boss, the Radiance. Now this boss is absolutely no joke. It took me many an attempt to wipe this thing off the face of Hollownest. It is one of the hardest bosses in the game. And just like all of the endgame bosses we have fought so far, every single time we take any sort of a hit off this thing, we're going to lose 2 masks instead of 1. So it's extremely important we dodge as many of these attacks as possible, but at the same time we need to dish out the damage to push it into the next phase. This is phase 1 at the moment, and as we can see there's lots of things going on here, so we need our wits about us big time. The ground can sometimes flame up and spikes can come out and hurt us. The Radiance will also throw attacks at us. There's laser beams coming across the screen. There's giant arrows coming across the screen. There's homing missiles coming at us. All of these things can be dodged, but it takes a lot of practice and a lot of effort. Now we do have all upgraded skills. We're giving this thing absolute welly every time we get an opportunity. All of our spells have been fully upgraded. We now have full soul, so we're going to save that for healing for now. Normally I would hit it with a few Abyss Shrieks. That would dramatically drain its health, but we're going to focus on survival for the moment because that first phase wasn't my greatest of first phases, but at the end of the day all we want is for this thing to die so we can move on to the rest of the game. Now at the start of phase number 2 you've got platforms here. This makes it much harder to maneuver around the place. Those laser beams the Radiance casts, they can be extremely difficult to dodge, especially when you're in mid-air. But at the end of the day, just like most of the tough bosses in this game, you just gotta be a little bit patient, heal when you can, strike when you can, and try your absolute best not to get hit by things. Now we just had 1 piece of health here, but fortunately enough we managed to somehow survive this phase. We were able to dodge most of the attacks this thing was dishing out. Those laser beams almost got me. I jumped onto its head a few times, hit it a few more strikes, and that was enough to get it up into the final phase. Now this phase for the most part is simple enough, but there was an added pressure of me having one piece of health. If I took any sort of an attack, if I took a sniff of an attack, it was game over, right back to the start again. So I made it my absolute priority to not get hit with that laser beam every time I had to send up one of these steps. When I got to the top, the final phase was within my grasp. I just had to hit it a few times, couple of spells, couple of needles into the face, and that was it. It was time to enjoy the final couple of cutscenes before we get into the Godhome DLC. Now this cutscene is extremely satisfying. The Hollow Knight comes to join you in your quest to wipe this thing out. It opens up its face for you to give it a good few slaps before it's finally defeated. The Hollow Knight was never really a foe to us, it was a friend. Its main purpose as a vessel was to contain the radiance and infection that plagues Hollownest. And now that we have eliminated that, Hollownest is now free from harm. But this is going to come at a cost, because when we got the first ending, we had to become the first vessel, so we sucked up all of the plague, we contained radiance, and the seals were set anew. But this time it's different. This time we have eliminated the root cause. No more radiance, no more plague, but unfortunately, our lovely little Hollow Knight friend doesn't make it. There's only one survivor in this, and that is the protagonist that we get to play with in the next game, Hornet. So despite what kind of ending you get, they are a little bit depressing in my opinion, but I am quite hopeful for Silksong, and I am quite hopeful in terms of maybe Hornet can do something for our lovely little Hollow Knight friend. Maybe she can gain some powers, or she can gain some wisdom, and she can restore what was once lost. But we're just going to have to wait and find out. The 4th of September is upon us. It's going to be very interesting to see what kind of a story Silksong will have and how much it will tie into this story. Now we're not out of the woods just yet. We have another DLC to play, and this one is called Godhome. And Godhome has some of the most ferocious bosses you will ever see in video game history. Extremely difficult bosses that require a lot of practice, a lot of patience, and a lot of skill. So this is the charm setup we are going to use. The Grub Song is always a great charm because we're going to be taking damage, and when we do, the soul we get from that will be very important to either counter-attack with a devastating spell or to heal us. The Thorns are very good as well, in that if we get hit from something close range, we can also retaliate with those and do some extra damage. I don't know how many times the Thorns have saved me from a grisly fate. Now we're jumping straight into the final Pantheon here. Once we complete this Pantheon, which is the Pantheon of the Night, we will obtain 112%. Now this Pantheon is not easy. The first boss itself is extremely fast, extremely aggressive, and you just gotta be super quick, especially when it brings out those lasers. You literally have a second or less to jump out of the way of those lasers, or you're going to take 2 masks of damage. Now this particular playthrough isn't me at my best. I used to be way better there about a year ago. I mean way better because I played the game all the time. But because it's been so long since I fought these bosses, I am a tad bit rusty. Now this fight, the Lost Kin, can sometimes be a very irritating fight because of the ads that constantly spawn. And these ads will absolutely ruin your day, because every time you get that boss into a little stun lock for a few seconds and you try to heal, those ads will make absolutely sure you do not pull a successful heal off. Now there are charms you can use to repel those ads, like charms to summon minions and whatnot, but you have to ask yourself, is it worth using one of those charms for the sake of one fight in the gauntlet of very difficult fights to come? 9 times out of 10 I say no. Just try your best to avoid as many of the attacks as you can. Use your spells to the best of your abilities, and try to get some heals off when the opportunity presents, but don't get too greedy or you're going to lose all of that lovely soul that you just poured into recovery. Now because we have the Shaman Stone, we can take off huge chunks of HP from these bosses every time we land a hit. Sometimes that Shade Soul will actually land a couple of times, dealing huge amounts of damage. Now the boss after this is extremely irritating, but you can also use the next boss as a kind of recovery phase. The boss fight, in my opinion, is a very slow fight because he teleports all over the place and he just summons these floaty ads that just go from right to left and left to right of the screen. But if you actually hang out down at the bottom middle. Most of the ads can't hit you, so it's a great place to go and recover. I found the best way to actually tackle this guy is to charge up an attack by holding down the attack button and unleashing a powered attack every time you get close to him. By doing that, hit and run all of the time, eventually you'll get the win. If you lose a couple of pieces of health, not to worry, you can just head back down to the center of the stage and you can heal up. Now the next boss is extremely difficult to fight, and I think the reason why so many people have trouble fighting this boss is that the only way you can more or less wipe this boss out is to be extremely aggressive. If you play too much on the defensive side, this boss is just going to ruin your day. The best advice I can give is to get right up close into this boss's face. If the boss jumps up into the air, just run behind the boss and strike. If the boss does a charging stance just like that, make sure that you dash straight through the boss to avoid that attack. If you can master those two scenarios, you won't have a whole lot of issues with this boss. And just like most of the MEM bosses you fight, any attack you take from that Tyrant Queen will do 2 masks instead of 1, but she doesn't have a whole lot of HP, so if you just keep up the attacks, keep up the spells, she goes down fairly quickly. Now the next boss is a right pain. This is an upgraded version of the Dung Defender, the White Defender. More or less the same attack patterns with a few extra surprises thrown in, but this thing has an absolute mountain of HP, I am not joking you. You're going to end up fighting this thing for a very, very long time. Now I found that sticking to either the left hand side or the very right hand side of the arena is a safe place for most of his attacks, and it's a great place to get some healing as well. So I literally went into the corner, went back out, struck him a few times, went back into the corner again. Now sometimes he will hit you regardless, but thankfully he only does 1 piece of health and not 2 when he lands a hit. And because we have the grub song and because we have charms that gives us additional soul when we strike, it was very easy to just out heal everything he threw at us, and eventually he went down without much issues at all. The next fight was the failed champion. Now he is fast, he is aggressive, but you can actually just walk through a lot of his big attacks when he jumps up in the air like that. If he doesn't jump, if he decides to just bring the hammer straight down, you can just shadow dash straight through him and get a few hits in from behind. When his head pops out of his body, it's a good time to recover and use the Dream Nail to get back some soul. The next boss we're taking on is Markok. Now this guy can be a bit irritating, but once you get used to his patterns, he's not that bad at all. He has a shield that rotates around him. Eventually he will generate a second shield, and he will spin those shields around, and every couple of seconds those shields will take up more and more of the arena. So the best thing to do when this happens is to just stay clear or get right up into his face and dish out some damage. Now I find the Abyss Shriek is a great move to use against him. As long as you keep moving and just watch out for those nails coming at you all the time, he's not too bad and he doesn't have a huge amount of HP, so he does go down pretty quickly. Now the next fight is not a sprint, it's an endurance. You need to fight 6 of these Watchers. They're more or less the exact same as the Watchers you fought back in the base game, you just have to go through 6 of them. Now when the fight first starts, it just gives you 1, which is nice. Because I have the Sharp Shadow Charm, they're much easier to fight because every time I dash through, I'm also dealing damage and my dash attack is a little bit longer. So it just makes it a lot easier to avoid a lot of the abilities they can dish out. You will only fight a maximum of 2 at a time, so you're never going to get super overwhelmed. My advice is to just try to keep both of them on screen so you can see what they're going to do, especially when they start doing the big wind-up roll. The next boss you're going to fight is the Soul Tyrant. Now there's a lot of moments in this fight where you can heal. The biggest one is when he goes from the left and then transfers over to the right of the screen with 6 of those orbs. That's actually a great time to get 1 or 2 pieces of health back if you're struggling on recovery. When he dashes you like that, if you can jump around him and then fire a Shade Soul, you can do a lot of damage with that. And if you can catch him mid-air, you can also hit him with some Abyss Shrieks, which will drain his HP big time. In total, he doesn't have a huge moveset. Once you get used to dodging all of his moves, he actually becomes a very fun fight. It's a very fluid fight. Now he does have a second phase, and you have to watch out for this. You might think to yourself, oh, I've defeated him, next thing he starts pounding the ground like there's no tomorrow. Dodge the projectiles, hit him with a few Abyss Shrieks, and there you go, off into the next fight, which is the big one. Now this is a brand new fight compared to all of the previous fights we have done. This is the Pure Vessel. It is one of the hardest fights in the game. and it will take you anywhere between 10 and 50 attempts to actually beat this fight. The best advice I can give you is to not rush the boss through the phases. Focus on avoiding all of his attacks. When you have the opportunity, hit him with a Shade Soul, hit him with your nail a few times. Sometimes you will put him into a nice stun lock for a couple of seconds. That will give you an opportunity to get back one mask, but remember, do not get greedy. If you attempt to heal 2 masks, he will recover and he will severely punish you with it with one of his many attacks. Almost all of the attacks this guy does will take 2 masks off you. He's very quick, he likes to teleport and follow up an attack straight away, so you really have to be on your toes when you fight him. But eventually you will get into a rhythm where you're going to hit him, he's going to teleport, hit you with an attack, you're going to dodge, you're going to hit him, he's going to teleport and hit you with an attack, and it just goes like that over and over again. When the boss enters his second phase, he will use an ability where a sphere goes around him, followed by a few mini spheres. After that, try to avoid those at all costs, but it gives you a good opportunity too to hit him with a couple of spells when he's in that sphere because he remains still. When his HP gets below 25%, he'll use a new ability. It's basically a Void Tentacle. It can be quite difficult to avoid. Try your best to just jump over it. Use the double jump if you can, and then dash around him to get some hits in from the back. We have finally done it, 112% completion. We are now ready to take on Hollow Knight Silksong when that comes out on the 4th of September. So let's all cross our fingers and say a prayer that it will actually release on the 4th so we can all enjoy the experience.